Alrighty, so let's talk about our last week in this course and the last week in the semester. And now, of course, it's week 18, but week 17 our course. And most courses generally, then you only have a final. But today, as I got into Canvas, I wanted to kind of highlight something that I would really ask you to think about taking is like, your input, and sometimes instructors who I mention this to kind of think, wait, it's not true, but you are. In this sense, you're our customers. And the more we know, and if you work for a business, which I suspect most of us do, the more we know about our customers and their needs, the better off we're going to be to serve those needs. So your input is really effective, which, by the way, is going to come back around this week into our course because you help inform the changes I will make because I will be making changes to this course. So your feedback is really helpful. Now, if you don't do it, how would I know, right? So the other thing is I wanted to start with a apology about week 16, the large movie database file. Um, it is never my intention to have students spend a chunk of time trying to figure out how to get things working. My goal is always to spend the maximum amount of your time actually doing the work itself. But sometimes in tech, this happens. The truth is, there's just layers of abstraction between you and the thing that you're actually working on to, first the actual, let's say, a code along or a problem set, right? Those, though, between you and that, there are layers of technology that exist. And if one of them breaks down, it can be a really frustrating thing to have happen. And I just want to say I'm sorry. It's never my intention to have that happen, but sometimes it is just the reality of the world that we work in. And now I could say, and I have actually talked to instructors before about, what we're requiring of students. And in the tech field, this is the nature of what you will face. It's not unusual, and I understand that probably doesn't land well for some people, but learning how to navigate these types of things is a part of this field. Will it get better? Hasn't gotten better in my lifetime. It's just changed, morphed into other things. So let me just end by saying this about that. If you ran into issues and you were not able to push for week 16, you will need to figure it out for this week. I'll show you what I would recommend doing if for some reason, even after you followed all my other instruction. Now, again, if you came in to the point and you updated the get ignore for week 16, then you should be fine. The good news about week 17, no databases required. But if you are not able to push your code for week 17, I will mark off, so make sure you get it. Now, here's what you can do. I actually have a code space open already, one of the ones I'd kind of set up but never did anything with. And here's the actual code space itself. One of the things you can do is when you come in here, right, you can see actually how many changes. So in other words, what this is saying is when code space is created, it's a space that's different than your GitHub. And when that happens, when you change it, as we do every week, right, and then you push that change, that code change to GitHub, the last command, git push, in the Git workflow, right, then what happens is once you've pushed, your code space and your GitHub are the same. For many of you, because your GitHub is stuck on that large file, you've already submitted your week 17, you can no longer push your code's changes. So what you could do is come in here. I played with this today just to see if it would work. There's a couple options. One thing you can do is come in here and actually just delete the code space. Now, know that when you do that, you want to understand how many changes, right? Should be, because of the way our workflow in this course is that you're pushing weekly, daily, depending on your time of doing work. But in general, this should not be a lot of change. Should really only be the changes you had for week 17. So if you do that and you delete the code space, then you would come in here and then you would add one. I did notice today, and I don't know if this is true for you, and maybe it's just true for me, so I hesitate to say it, but I could create another code space. So that is the other option you could try. So for whatever process, and again, now what was happened is this happening actually has informed me to allow me to actually, of course, give heads up next semester. I'm going to go ahead and stop this other code space, which, by the way, this is the other thing that, especially if you're taking CIT courses, that we will have to do a better job at, because so many people using code space uses up their time even after they've updated. Okay, so here's what I want you to understand about week 17. So you have to do this on code space. I will take about 10 points off. If you're okay with that, let me know. I'll let you upload the file. The good news about the work, and I'll get to that in a minute, is that all we have is a README file this week, because I'm not going to have you install MySQL or Postgres. Okay, we'll come to that in a minute. Okay, I did also in this, the bottom of here, repeat what was from week 14, but I wanted to highlight one thing, which is these private repos that we're talking about here are going to go away on the Monday after the semester, because I have to start prepping the organization for that. Okay, so make sure if you want those, you're taking care of that. Again, I ask you not to share those. I will be changing some of the course content, but as just a good community member, which, by the way, in IT, this is also part of what we do, is like we are typically held to an ethical standard that's higher than some other business functions, because we handle sensitive information. Okay, so let me talk about the what if. So if at this point you're reaching out to me to say, hey, Rio, I'm at this letter grade and I want to get to this letter grade, what I will say to you is that Canvas has a built-in what-if scenario. And hopefully you already know this, and I'm not the first. But if I am the first person to tell you, when you go into your grade, now I won't see it because I'm looking at it as an instructor, but when you go in there, you can actually input grades to where you could say, hey, what if I did this item that I missed? Or what if if I upgraded the work and got most of the points for this one? What if I applied a late pass? Okay, so I'm just saying, the what if scenario is really, really helpful. Okay? Okay. So the other thing about this week, and I'm going to move over to my local, because if you haven't heard me say, I work locally all the time. So for this week, because we don't have MySQL loaded or Postgres loaded, which we really do more coding in MySQL, which is great, because and I love the way Carter does this week, because he really highlights the differences between SQLite and MySQL and Postgres as well. And we do very little in Postgres, but regardless, I think it's just really good to get introduced to these things. So what you're going to do is, in your README file, in addition to the notes that you will take, because that's how I will do this, is when you code along, right, you actually will do this using these backticks, right? So this is the actual markdown file, and here's what it looks like when you when you render the markdown file. This is what it will look like. It's a code block. So if I'm writing code, and maybe I'm writing a couple of lines of it, I could also do this where I notice this does the same thing, and I could write multiple lines here, right? So if you're writing a block, you can just put those in between as well, like I've shown on this one. So, and which kind of brings back the idea of why I didn't have you install MySQL, which is that for one assignment, it just didn't make sense. Now, for me, going forward, something I'm going to consider students doing is actually doing something called containers. And containers are a way to have a generic, in this case, generally Linux, setup, even if you're using Windows, Mac, Linux, or something else, in a container in your system. Okay. And the reason that's helpful, then when I give the instruction to install SQLite, it's true for everyone. And it's easy to kind of just blow away if you need it, because you end up, of course, like we do now, pushing stuff to GitHub and you can recreate it. So why do I mention this is because for the MySQL or the Postgres, you could actually install that into a container. If you don't know about containers, very, very popular for a lot of different reasons. Typically just standardizing things so that when different teams working on different locations and different operating systems have a common interface. And that's just one of many. Okay, so here's the other thing. When you're writing MySQL, one of the things I will look at when I grade is did you code it correctly? So how do you do that? One thing is you just follow along carefully and you check your code against what Carter's writing. The other way you could do this is once you've written the code, you could actually paste it into a LLM of your choice, right? Typically ChatGPT, I suspect. And what you can tell it is, hey, could you give me syntax feedback? And it will probably do it without you even telling it, but the more you prompt it, right, the better it is. In general, we talked about that when we all talked about the idea of how we use LLMs, okay? So know that that will be part of the grade. So you'll be taking notes and you'll be coding in backticks in one file, the README file. Okay, so that gets me to here, which is the idea of thank you, right? So, and I know I said this before, but it's true. Like, I really appreciate the students who have hung out, any of them that have come into this class. The ones that have hung out to week 17, you've made a commitment to your own skill base and to this class and to your development. And I know this is not an easy class. And I know for students who are taking other CIT classes or possibly other data analytics or something else, this class on top of, for at least the ones I know who are taking my JavaScript class, this class combined with that is a real challenge. And this is something I'm going to be doing going forward, which is telling students, hey, I don't recommend actually taking, these types of classes like a JavaScript class and a 28 class together. We need to get better as a campus to give you suggestions. Now, even when we do give suggestions, sometimes you're just focused and you're like, I can do this. I have the bandwidth to do it. But that's not the thank you. That's just FYI. The thank you is just like thank you, because without you, and this is the truth, I don't have a job. And I really love this job. I hope that comes through in what I do. I really love doing this. I love learning for myself. I'm a lifelong learner. That's why this has been a fun course for me, because I love learning something new. I wasn't really excited when it came around that I was going to teach this class, but now that I've taught it, I really love it. And the thing I really see is that it is a good way to introduce non-programming students to programming concepts. Even though there's a lot more concepts that you need for programming, this is just a good introduction to that. And I never thought of SQL that way. Never did. It is a programming language for databases, specifically to databases, but still a programming language in the sense of the way the code is run, what we call it compiled or interpreted, right? So it is a programming language. So I just want to thank you for being willing to stick this out. I at this point when I look at the statistics, they're not bad for sure, right? In any kind of coding class, there is kind of an expectation that you're just going to lose a certain amount of students. I don't like to give in to those expectations, but I also know I require a certain amount of dedication and work and time. So I know that is unfortunately the natural side effect of this. And it's a balance of because if you're going to be in tech, you want to have these skills. You want to have these skills on board. Sometimes students are like, this just feels like busy work. And to that, I roll my eyes first, and then I go, how do you learn something? You stay busy doing it. The more busy you are doing the thing you're trying to learn, even if it feels boring, the better you're going to get at it. This is just true in life. Why do I work out? Because I get better at it. Why do I run? Because I get better at it. Why do I learn? Because I get better at it. So thank you for hanging out there. So the other thing is, because this coming into this spring 2025 semester, I'm working on recruiting tutor for this class. So if you're interested, please reach out to me at my campus email. I'm going to help you walk through the process, right? Depending on how many students are interested in. I don't know all the details of it. All I know is that what we do as instructors was we recommend students, and right now there hasn't been a tutor for this class, which I know several of you have asked, and I'm like, I'm it. And oftentimes my schedule and your schedule don't line up. So that's an unfortunate thing as well. Okay, so here's the graded part of this week. So what I want you to do is in your reply, right? So by the way, normally on a week that we start a new topic, we do 20 minutes. We're not doing that. That's all. And I don't do the whole scaling lecture. I do up until after he just basically covers a little bit of Postgres. And then we stop it at that point. Again, that's the cool thing about CS50 is you can continue on. But here's what I want. The graded part of this attendance is reply, giving me feedback on what you think worked well in this course and what you think I should consider changing. So you need to answer both of those to get those points in here. So what do you think worked well? What would you tell me? Consider changing this, right? Because again, you are the customer. I am delivering a service. The better I can deliver that service can often be predicated or dependent upon how well it's received by the customer. Okay, because we have different goals at times. Sometimes students are just like, I want to get through something. Instructors are like, I want you to learn this thing. So but it doesn't negate the benefit of getting that feedback. Okay, so then you have one reply that's worth 0.15, and then again I've put these here. And then I have just for the scaling at this point, I've only put this here. So just to, so make sure you have, again, make sure you fixed. However, I've given you a couple of suggestions today about fixing your code space to make sure you're using that. Look at I have pretty much at this point, the schedule for tech interviews is full. Hopefully if you wanted on that schedule, you got on that schedule. If you're waiting until now, you can still reach out. I'll do my best to work with you. My schedule also becomes pretty restrictive because I have campus things in addition to class things that I have to do at the end of the semester. And this is true for this semester as well. Working on the ICA actually is one of the things we're doing right now. Working on. And by the way, when several of you said about the browser issue with the ICA, we think we fixed that. But basically, Rick, who some of you are taking for CIT85, Rick and I were talking last night, and we think we fixed that because of the way it's been changed from the student to the instructor view. Anyway, thank you so much. Have a great winter break. Reach out to me if you're interested in talking about the tutor position. Again, I haven't gotten it approved. I just know that they want us to help students get in when we need tutor positions. All right. Have a great winter break. And, if in the future you want to connect, please do so. You're welcome to connect with me at the campus email as well. Typically, I do not take direct messages in Discord, although you can do a shout out to me and we can connect that way as well. All right, have a good one.